July 2025, the Black Sea. A vast expanse of water that has already seen more conflict in the last 3 years than in the previous 3 decades. This summer, Russia added a new twist. Explosive naval drones slamming into target ships with thunderous impact, part of an exercise Moscow called July Storm. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive from Naval Brief. For decades, naval exercises followed a familiar script. Frigates firing gunnery drills, submarines practicing torpedo runs, aircraft swooping low over the waves. But July Storm was something different. Russia deployed waves of unmanned surface vessels, each packed with explosives, piloted remotely across the sea at speeds that few conventional ships could counter in time. Their mission: destroy hulks designed to mimic enemy warships. To Russian state media, it was proof of a growing capability. To Western observers, it was something else entirely, a sign that drone warfare at sea, once dismissed as a sideshow, has become central to modern strategy. The roots of this shift lie in Ukraine. Since 2022, Kyiv's defenders have repeatedly used homemade and Western-supplied naval drones to strike at Russia's Black Sea fleet. Small, cheap, and hard to detect, these drones destroyed or disabled some of Moscow's most valuable assets. The pride of the fleet, the cruiser Moskva, was lost early in the war. Other ships were forced to retreat eastward, bottling up Russia's once vaunted naval presence. Moscow learned a harsh lesson. Billion-dollar ships can be threatened by unmanned boats, costing a fraction of the price. The message was too loud to ignore. By 2025, Russia wasn't just defending against drones. It was building and testing its own. The exercise began in early July, stretching across several days. Russia deployed a mix of conventional warships and auxiliaries, but the spotlight was on the drones. Flat, low-profile craft skimming across the waves. Some painted gray to blend with the sea, others camouflaged with tarps until launch. They struck with brutal simplicity. Engines roared, wakes fanned out, and the drones accelerated straight into target hulks. Cameras mounted on their bows transmitted the final seconds of approach. Water spray, steel looming larger than a blinding flash as explosives detonated. Russian officials claimed direct hits on multiple targets. Video released by the Ministry of Defense showed at least 3 separate impacts, each followed by towering columns of smoke. In one clip, a drone rammed the midsection of a retired landing ship, ripping a jagged hole into its side. But July Storm was not just about target practice. It was choreography. Drones launched in coordinated groups, supported by helicopters feeding targeting data and patrol boats simulating escorts. Overhead, reconnaissance aircraft orbited, relaying real-time imagery to command posts. This was not improvisation, it was doctrine in the making. Naval drones shift the equation of power at sea. Traditional navies rely on layered defenses: radar to detect, guns to intercept, missiles to keep threats at a distance. But swarms of small, fast-moving boats create dilemmas. A destroyer may stop 1 or 2, but what about a dozen converging at once? Each defensive missile fired costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Each drone destroyed may cost only tens of thousands. The math is unforgiving. For Russia, July Storm served 3 purposes. First, it showed domestic audiences that the Navy is adapting after humiliations in the Black Sea. Second, it signaled to NATO that Moscow is ready to spread drone tactics beyond Ukraine. And third, it gave its own commanders a live laboratory to refine how drones and manned ships can operate side by side. Russia is not alone. The United States has experimented with unmanned surface vessels in the Persian Gulf and Pacific. China has invested heavily in drone fleets that could one day target carriers in the South China Sea. Even smaller nations are entering the game. Iran has displayed prototypes, while Turkey and Israel are exporting their own designs. The common thread is clear. Drones are becoming the poor man's navy, a way to threaten advanced fleets without building them. But for major powers, drones are not replacements. They are force multipliers, able to extend reach, overwhelm defenses, and gather intelligence at minimal risk to crews. In that sense, July Storm was more than an exercise. It was an announcement that Russia has crossed the line from defending against drones to wielding them as a primary weapon. For NATO planners, the footage of drones ripping into target hulks was unsettling. War games in the Arctic, the Mediterranean, or the Baltic increasingly account for missile strikes, submarine ambushes, and air raids. Now, swarms of unmanned boats must be factored into every scenario. Imagine a future clash in the Baltic Sea. Russian drones racing toward NATO patrols, supported by electronic warfare jamming and overhead drones feeding targeting data. Even if defenses succeed, the distraction alone could open gaps for submarines or missiles to strike. In the words of one Western naval analyst, this isn't science fiction, it's a budget reality. Russia just showed it knows how to spend small to create big problems. Some analysts warn that July storm may not stay confined to the Black Sea. Russia has bases in the Arctic, the Pacific, and even maintains a naval presence in the Mediterranean. If drones can be produced cheaply and in numbers, they could appear in any of these theaters. Consider the Arctic, where NATO and Russia already shadow each other through ice-thickened seas. A swarm of drones launched from a hidden cove could harass supply ships or test defenses without ever risking a crew. Or the Mediterranean, where Russian vessels support operations in Syria. In those congested waters, drones could easily complicate NATO patrols. Lost in the technical focus is the human side. Russian sailors, long trained to operate traditional fleets, now find themselves working alongside unmanned craft. For some, it is a reminder of vulnerability, that their billion-dollar ships can be matched by machines built in workshops. For others, it is reassurance. Better to send a drone into danger than a crew of 200. During July storm, reports indicated that crews monitored drone feeds on large screens in command posts, tracking every turn and wake as if they were piloting the boats themselves. The detonation of each drone was met with cheers. These were not just tests. They were morale plays, designed to rebuild confidence in a navy scarred by battlefield losses. The Black Sea is now both proving ground and warning signal. Where drones once crept into harbors under cover of night, they now operate in broad daylight as tools of state power. The lesson of July storm is not only that Russia has drones, but that it intends to use them in doctrine, in planning, and in message. The age of unmanned naval warfare has arrived, and Moscow has made it part of its playbook. The Arctic may be frozen, the Pacific vast, the Mediterranean crowded, but the footage of target hulks erupting in smoke carries the same meaning everywhere. The seas are no longer safe for machines. This is Naval Brief, your briefing room for sea power and defense analysis. If you're all hands on deck for real naval operations, maritime conflict, and global defense, subscribe and stay mission ready for the next briefing.